It's all about self-custody understanding. It's basic 101. I'm not a coder, although I code back in the day, but I'm mostly cybersecurity focused around the Bitcoin ecosystem since 2011. I know most of the guys in the ecosystem quite well. But anyways, all my information is here. We'll have this presentation public, or I can get a version of it. About myself, I'm the founder of Privkey. We provide security products and services for the community, for businesses, individuals that need to protect their enterprise, whether you're a bank or you're just an individual or any other entity, you might need help. I've been in Bitcoin, as I said, 2011. I've been doing Bitcoin meetups back in 2014, starting them, trying to get people educated with wallets and what is Bitcoin and the basics, starting from custodial wallets, non-custodial wallets, and cybersecurity around all of that. I'm also an auditor, CCSS auditor from C4, and what we do there is follow like a typical auditor checklist, and we go through all the 32, 34 different aspects of cybersecurity that are related to anything that touches cryptocurrency, specifically the secrets that we're going to be talking about today, which has to do with custodial and non-custodial, all those secrets. So when people talk about, well, what's a password? That's a secret. What's 12 words? Those are secrets, right? And a secret is a secret until it's not, when it gets exposed to another human or the internet, for example. So these are basic things that we want to learn through this workshop. So that's the intro. We're going to go through the Bitcoin basics. We're going to go through some examples of how Bitcoin works at a very high level, but I'll try to make it as fun as possible. Different strategies and tools that we can use to self-custody. We're going to look at, like we saw in the mempool, we're going to look at how to look at transactions. What do they mean? Not an expert, but if anybody has questions, we go back and forth, we explain, we learn, right? And we're going to have some hands-on experiences and exercises. I have some hardware wallets, and we'll talk about what those are. I'm going to show that, and we're going to do, hopefully, if everybody downloads a wallet of Satoshi, I'm going to focus on that specific wallet. It just was available to America, or at least to the US and Canada. It was outside, but now they came back, and now they have a new version of that wallet, which is custodial and non-custodial, and you'll see the difference between the two. And we're going to go to conclusions, next steps. What we'll learn is focus on self-custody, ownership and control. The idea here is to look at what is self-custody steps, ownership, concept, wallet evaluation. So we're going to look at different wallets and what are the differences between them. Secure seed management. Again, those secrets, how do you secure those secrets and the proper way to secure them? And when do they get compromised? And when they get compromised, what do you do about it? UTXO privacy is, UTXO is those unspent transactions and how they basically are managed. That's the actual database that Bitcoin uses to manage its tokens, or in this case, Bitcoin. Basic operation security, we'll talk a little bit about that. And confidence to leave the exchanges, that's the key here. Most of us are on Coinbase or Kraken or any of these public exchanges, Binance. And what the idea here is to get out, get in, get out as quickly as possible. We're going to create a wallet using hopefully Wallet of Satoshi. If there's other wallets we can start using, but if everybody has Wallet of Satoshi or if they have their own, then that's also good. Back up that seed, whether we do it on paper or we do it online, which we don't recommend. writing on a piece of paper, putting on a seed somewhere in a metal case that's fireproof and waterproof and all that stuff. You can do that as well. We're going to learn about that. We're going to send some Bitcoin. So another thing to incentivize, I have a wallet Satoshi. So if anybody downloads a wallet Satoshi, I'll set some sats. And I've done the meetups. That's how I engage the public and the people who show up, is that I give them sats and I have them send sats to each other. And just getting through that exercise gets you into an understanding, oh, that works like Venmo, like it works like Cash App, or these custodial apps that we have on our phones that we do for paying for products and services. We're going to verify the transaction and practice safe handling of these secrets, because once you start getting ownership of that secret, how do you manage that? Core concept. Okay, so just to start with the basic concept of what Bitcoin is and the fundamentals of the wallets, it's a decentralized ledger, distributed record transactions, no central authority. So that's the key here. It's a huge distributed ledger, distributed database. It's not an SQL database that stays in some server in the cloud or at a specific location. A lot of the database have disaster recovery sites. Banks have the same thing, and they go and they have their own backup site. So when they go down, then the backup takes over. Same thing happens in the cloud. They could be fully in cloud and transfer the data or replicate the data to another location in the cloud or a completely different cloud vendor. Or they have a hybrid where they download the stuff from the physical location where they have their own database. Bitcoin is completely different. It has a decentralized database distributed through all nodes throughout the world that have anybody who runs a Start9 like your shirt. You can have your own node running at home, download the whole database or parts of the database, and you can verify yourself. You can tie your wallet to that node if you want, that you trust, or you just trust some kind of open node out there that everybody trusts or sees or knows. So that database is linked by this blockchain, chain of blocks containing transactions, data secure cryptographically. We're gonna see a demonstration that I've carried since 2014 is when I made that presentation. But basically, what the block is think of it as a folder that has all these transactions. So these transactions basically are all those, anybody wants to purchase something or buy something or enable a transaction, they broadcast it to the whole network, the internet. And that goes through propagate, kind of like a broadcast. And these nodes pick up that broadcast. And these are called the miners, right? So the miners are these nodes where you could be a miner, you could be not a miner, but the ones that are miners, they grab those transactions, put them in that folder and start putting it in there. Once they put them in there, they so they decide what they want. Basically, they kind of like filter. They say, okay, I want this transaction, or I don't want any transaction. And they start to kind of like work, like they call it mining. And that's cryptography. They're playing a game, basically a lottery, finding out if they can get that ticket. So they're actually buying tickets, like a lottery ticket. So they buy 1,000, 1,000,000 tickets, and that needs power consumption. It needs CPU, needs work to get those tickets, right? If the miner that gets the most tickets is probably going to get the right the winner for that block or that piece of transaction. Once they have that ticket, they will then show it very quickly to the rest of the world, to the whole broadcast back, saying, "Hey, I found the ticket," and they get compensated with bitcoins, and their block becomes, or that folder becomes that, and they put a number, a serial number, and that's where we hear that their long number 900,000 something, which is a block number at the current point when it all started in 2009. So these blocks, these folders get stamped with that number, that serial number, and move on. They go to the next block and start the whole process again. Maybe the next time, one of the miners that has maybe a few tickets, maybe they don't have that much processing power, they win and they get their compensation of 3-point-something Bitcoins that the reward is right at the moment. But we'll talk about how that works in that example. So this is what blockchain is all about. Mining is that process that we talked about. It validates transactions. That's another thing that the miners do. Besides buying those tickets, as they do this, they're validating, making sure that all these transactions follow a specific standard, which is all the white paper, the Bitcoin Satoshi white paper. So they make sure that it's validated. And this is done by computational power. The consensus part is when they get the ticket and they broadcast, everybody agrees and they check it very quickly because it's just a hash, a mathematical hash that it goes out and says, okay, this is correct, this 2 + 2 is 4, it's not 5, so we know exactly what the answer is, and that person has the right answer for that specific block. So there is consensus, we move on, that we know that block is stamped, we go open a new block with this serial, and they start the whole process all over again. And then we have these wallets, which are the tool that manage the private public key pairs, and it doesn't store coins. So that's a key part here. We don't store coins in a wallet like we do with our normal wallets that we have. We have this wallet, which is software that basically organizes cryptographically using that UTXO data set to make sure that they can find, all of these, based on the public-private key pair, they know that these coins belong to me, or the Satoshis belong to me because I have control, I have the secret that can move these tokens. So the key here is that private public key pairs is like, think of it as you go to the airport and you bring extra bags and you don't need that bag, but you don't have a place here in Atlanta, but you'll be back. So what you do is you go to the locker area. I don't know if you've seen those at the airport. You have a locker, kind of like a rack, where you have a bunch of numbers of lockers and they have keys on them. Some of them don't have keys. You grab the key of one that's kind of an empty locker. You open it up. You put your bag in there. Your bag that you're putting in there or that key that comes out is that public-private key, right? The public part is that slot that goes into that locker and that number, basically. That anybody can put stuff in it, but only I can move the bag out of that locker. And that's what that wallet does. It allows you to move those. You can move the stuff that's in those lockers. Maybe you have multiple lockers around multiple airports around the country. You can do that, and that's what that wallet does. So if you have that analogy, that's great because it explains how what wallets do and the tokens that are in the cloud. There's lockers in the cloud in that blockchain. UTXO is unspent transaction output representing the coins you control. So these are exactly those representations of those coins that you're moving around with that public-private key pair. And then self-custody is actually holding those private keys, ensures full control and security of those phones. So it's having the ability to have that key when you went to the airport, grab that key from the locker. You have that key, it's in your pocket, that's your wallet, and you walk around and you have control over them. That goes to say that when you have a custody wallet is when somebody else has that key. You don't want to carry that key, you're going swimming, I don't want to be carrying around, so you give it to somebody else. That somebody else has now control over those lockers and those Bitcoins. So that's what custodian, that's what Kraken does, that was Coinbase does, all these exchanges, they have your key basically, and they can, well, the same thing with our bank accounts. It's not your money, that you just get permission to get to your money. That's basically what it boils down to, which is sad because it should be your money. You should be able to go and even if you buy gold at Citibank, for example, they'll give you a paper representation of that gold. When you show up and say, no, I want a physical gold, they'll say, well, sorry, we can't do that. We can give you cash, which is much better, but they won't give you the coins, or they're going to give you the whatever gold you bought before. So custodial wallets, those are the third parties, the Coinbase that hold those private keys. It's convenient, user-friendly. You get recovery options because you can call Citibank, you can call Coinbase, you can call Kraken. You'll have a support personnel there, but you can't call Bitcoin Satoshi's help desk, anybody here to get your private keys. That won't work. We do have solutions like multi-sig scenarios and setups that we'll talk about those, but multi-sig basically having multiple signatures and to do these moves. So it's like having a locker that has 3 keys instead of 1 key. And then anybody of those two, you need 2 keys to open. That's what we have on safety deposit box at the banks. Normally they give 2 keys, and you give that to your wife and your uncle or whatever, and then they can open that locker. And then the bank has 1 key, so they can worst case scenario, get access to that deposit box. The risks for custodial is obviously these are honeypots for being hacked. Of course, we have a robust banking system that never goes down and never gets challenged, but it does happen. You lose control of, and you have to trust those third parties. Use cases is you got beginners, small amounts, frequent trading. So if you're trading on Coinbase, for example, you don't want to be going back and forth, depositing the coins in there. Or let's put it this way, you're transferring your coins from your private key and your wallet into the wallet of Coinbase so that you can start trading very quickly. So that's a convenient part about it. But it comes with a cost. The non-custodial wallets, you literally control the software. You have control of those keys and those secrets. Enhanced security, full ownership, no third-party risk. And it requires responsibility. That's the cons of having a wallet, is that you're responsible for the risk of key loss. For example, a lot of people back in the day, they would tell me, oh, you got your coins on your necklace here on this YubiKey. And I say, yeah, okay, keep thinking that. But anyways, the point is that there's a secret in here as well. And I'm responsible for this. I have it on my neck. I carry it around. I have multiple of these. I have backups of it. So if I lose my secret, I can still recover. But it's a responsibility. It's an extra step. It's an extra effort that you have to take over. So it's not super convenient. So what you want to do is get a balance on those. Especially if you're saving those coins long time storage. So you have a low time preference. So you don't care. You're holding this for 10 years, 5 years, 3 years. You don't touch it. You'll put it in a I have one here. It's a metal plate. They have different vendors that have plates like that, but you basically put the secrets in that plate. You store it in a safety deposit box, for example, and you store it. So you don't go to it because it's a hassle. You have to go to the bank and get it. So the same thing. You go to your seed case, restore the wallet, and spend it. So it takes some time. So that's for long storage and if you have high security. So if you're a company, you want to have these type of setups. All right. So this is the example that I had back in, I think I made this 2014. But what we have here is basically how Bitcoin works. It's a global Bitcoin network. It's distributed. There is no Bitcoin Inc. There's no servers that approve transactions. We explained. There's no servers at all. It's just a bunch of nodes. And as you can see, there's internet. You have these computers connected to each other. This is kind of like the internet setup. And in this case, we have 3 individuals. And let's say that these guys are actually mining, right? So they're mining themselves, and they all hold, all of these nodes, including them, hold the complete setup of Bitcoin database, the history and everything. So let's see how this is in action. So yeah, back in the day, we were talking about 1 Bitcoin. I don't know what the price was back then, $3,000, something like that. So yeah, number 1 she had 100 Bitcoins, so she's pretty well off. Number 2 has 200 and 300 and so on and so forth. And they're mining, so they start that new block. So these blocks happen every 10 minutes. So the block comes up, it's cleared, and the only things that you actually see in the blockchain when you start looking at these blocks is that you have a sender, receiver, amount, and a signature. Signature is key. Signature, so when you sign a check, right, you're using your hand, you take up a pen, and you sign the check, right? So think of the private key as your hand itself. It belongs to you. Never leaves you. It's always with you. And when you sign, it's a signed signature made by that hand. So the hand is a secret, and the signature is on the check approving that transaction. So keep that in mind. So she will then say, okay, I'm going to send 10 Bitcoins to my friend over here, down here, number 2. And she signs it. Now that gets broadcasted, and every one of these nodes in the internet will grab that transaction and put it in that folder in the block, right? In that block that they're working on. And then those balances change because now number 1 has 90, 210, and 300, so all the balances start to change. Second transaction comes in, and they grab it, and they say, okay, oh yeah, number 2 is sending number 3 10 Bitcoins. Balances, again, changes. The guy signs it, that happens, right? And now number 3 says, okay, I'm going to send 30 Bitcoins to number 2. So he sends 30 Bitcoins to him, he signs it, that's the same process. Balances change again. Now, while this is going on, more transactions coming through, but this is the idea. This gets done by the software, by the following the standards, make sure it's all signed, it's correctly done. There's no nothing that doesn't match the standard. And 10 minutes go by. Now, how does those 10 minutes actually become 10 minutes? That's a protocol. I tend to think that AI didn't start recently. AI started when Bitcoin started in 2009 and even before that. Because there is some kind of logic. The protocol thinks on itself and it self-adjusts. The protocol self-adjusts because if that 10 minutes becomes 20 minutes, 30 minutes, that means everybody's very quick at guessing that secret that's in there, those tickets. They buy a lot of tickets and they buy it. So if you want to buy, for example, you want to win the lotto in Florida, you'll buy a million tickets, and if you can afford it, and you'll probably get to hit the lottery. But that takes a lot of money to do. So this is the same concept. But the protocol will then say, hey, you're going 20 minutes. It's way too slow. Then we're gonna make that lottery a little bit easier. So it makes the lottery easier, and it goes down to 10. If it happens in every 5 minutes or 3 minutes, then it's getting too easy for these miners. I'll increase the number of the lot or whatever. The difficulty readjusts, and it goes back to 10 minutes. So this happens every 10 minutes. And number 2, which is the one that, in this case, 1, broadcast, gets 12.5 Bitcoins back then. Now, obviously, we don't get that reward, but the price is much better now than it is back then. But he gets mine, and they start the whole database. In other words, that block, a new block starts. So this happens every 10 minutes. Now, I want to stop here. Does anybody understand, get the concept of that, how Bitcoin works? Cool, clear. So this is a very basic way of understanding how Bitcoin works and how it maintains all these transactions and the security behind it. So that's what we call a confirmation message. So every 10 minutes, that confirmation happens. The key here is that if you're buying a cup of coffee, you don't want to wait for 10 minutes. You might want to wait, 2-3 seconds, whatever. And then usually the vendor, the coffee maker or the coffee shop will say, okay, I'll take the risk. I'll give you the coffee, get those sats, and I'll wait for the transactions to happen. It could be, if you're buying a house or a car, more expensive, you're transferring more Bitcoins, and you might want to say, okay, you know what? I'm going to wait 6 confirmations, which is about 60 minutes, right? Sometimes 1, 2 hours, whatever. But with a house, it's no big deal because you're still going to get the key weeks later or a month later when you finally get access to your house. So that's not a problem. And then we have Lightning, as we all know, layer 2s on top of Bitcoin that makes instantaneous transaction. And it's also confirmed and secured by this main process, because Lightning piggybacks on this, kind of like using its security to do its transaction handling. It's called mining every 10 minutes. And the idea here is that everyone agrees on the transactions by consensus. In other words, when that guy wins and mined, everybody knows that happened, and there's no turning back. That's why we say, okay, if you're going to buy a house, wait 6 confirmations, because if a hacker comes in and tries to beat the system, they got to reconstruct 6 blocks back, and that's very difficult to do. It's impossible, so that's why we say, okay, just for guarantee, I'll wait for six transactions. And again, the winner is random because they have those tickets called proof of work. So mastering self-custody, hardware wallets, and seed phase. I have 3 vendors here that we're going to talk about. Some of the best practices, secure hardware wallets options. One of them is SeedSigner. It's air-gapped, open source. So I have a SeedSigner here. This is a Raspberry Pi Zero. The actual vendor is up front or in the main hall, and he can give you some information on it. But it's just basically with a screen. It has a camera in the back, and this is your hardware. So the secrets are stored in this while it's turned on. The unique thing about this is that when this thing gets powered off, everything gets lost that's inside. So the private keys are transferred to some kind of physical, either you write it down, a QR code or something like that. So that's one highly secure device that you can use for this. In a multi-sig environment, you might have 2 of these, and then the other ones are just a regular wallet on your phone. The Jade is another version of this hardware. I got one here, similar kind of device that has basically has a camera also in the back, so you can scan QR codes and transfer data that way. This one has Bluetooth as well. So in this case, it allows you to connect to your phone to the actual device. So you have, it's not really air-gapped, but it could be air-gapped. If you don't use the Bluetooth, turn it off. But you have a screen, and you can go through different setups in that sense. And then you have a Coldcard advanced security features. That's this guy right here. It looks like a calculator. They have a newer version of this, which has looks like a BlackBerry back in the day, if anybody remembers what a BlackBerry looks like. But this guy here has the reason it has air-gapped, or let me see if I can hang this somewhere. So this Coldcard has just a basic keystrokes here, and in the back it has, this is all open source hardware, by the way. It has a SIM slot. You can put a card in here. So think of this as the secret is in here. In other words, remember that signing, the secrets are here? While this guy is turned on, the secret is inside. When it's turned off, its secret is backed up, some paper wallet. Same thing here. The secret is in the device, needs to sign. It has a button here, and it presses the button. The signature happens, right? So the signature never leaves the enclave or the hardware itself. And the same thing here. But this guy, because it could be powered, it's just you're powered on. I mean, you have a connection, but the power is just power. There's no data going through. There's also cables that have a disconnect. There's no connection. It's just transferring power, like when you go to Tesla and you power your devices over a magnet. The same idea here. But in order to sign, when this guy happens the same process, you sign on this device, it signs it on the SD card. So it's kind of like, think of the SD card as the check that goes in and you put it in there, and then you press the button and it signs it, and then you take the SD card out. So now it's air-gapped because the secret stays here, but then you put it on your laptop or you put it on your device, or you're transferring, which is basically a signed check. It's a signed transaction. It gets broadcasted, it gets sent to all those miners. It's the same concept, same idea. So next slide, we're going to talk about we're going to do a small live demo. But in all these cases, you want to make sure you have the recent firmware. Most of these manufacturers have firmware, so you want to make sure that you update the firmware. Basic setup process. Generating a wallet. So you verify the integrity, you make the basic setup. In this case, for example, in the Jade, you actually create words. So it creates all these different backup words that will be your actual backup. That's a signed part, and you write them down. And in the case of the SeedSigner, you actually take a picture and write it on a piece of paper, and then the device will verify that that's the correct seed. And then you can connect these devices to your own software. It doesn't have to be the vendor's software. You can connect it to your own software. So best practice, verify firmware integrity, avoid online exposure. Like for example, this never gets online. Same thing with the SeedSigner. Jade is kind of does get connected. So how do we generate the seed phrase and make a backup of it? So this is a 24 to 12 word seed as call it as a master key. So what happens here is that Bitcoin protocol establishes that you have to create a public-private key pair. And that's a very long string of like a secret password. Very difficult. Back in the day, it was very difficult to write those things down and put them on paper. It's not that easy. So they came up with a standard that allows you to use 12 English words from a dictionary, or 24. Now, you could use any language dictionary and add it to the generating software. But the idea here is that you get a human-like password that's readable in 12 words sequentially. In other words, there's an order to it, 12 or 24. Once you have those backed up, it means that you back up and forget kind of thing, and then you keep using the wallet. Anytime you need that backup is only because you lost your wallet, you lost your online software, you lost your hardware. You need to use those backup keys to restore back your secret, basically. But the key here is that treat those 12 words, 24 words as actual secrets. You don't want to show it to anyone. You want to write them down. You want to put them away, put them in a safe deposit box or some stored place that is secure, that nobody else knows about it. Some of the strategies are put it in a steel plate for fire and water resistance, for example. Some people use Shamir secret. That's a way in which you can take a long phrase or a bunch of, in this case, 12 words, and split them into 3 or 4 different sections. And each of these sections is given to a specific individual. That's part of that. So if kind of like a multi-sig, but in the case, it's just a password. Back in the day, I used to work at a central bank. Yeah, the belly of the beast. So I worked there, and I was trying to explain Bitcoin to these people and its allergic reaction. I saw it vividly, and I said, okay, let me just move into Ripple back in the day and explain Ripple, which was a replacement to Swift system. But anyways, that's another rabbit hole. Now, back then, we had a left and right security officer, right? So the left and right security officers, I was cybersecurity for the bank, and I had to deal with Swift and how to recover, and we had these audits and tests and stuff like that. And they have this left security officer will have half of the password to get into the Swift system, for example, and the other security officer will have another half of that password, the back end of the password. And I'm like scratching my head, what are you kidding me? But anyways, they literally have 2 different passwords, and it's very official and all that stuff. But that's kind of like a Shamir secret, but Shamir is a more advanced process and way of doing this. And then you have these multi-sig, which I mentioned a little bit before, where you have 2 to 3 keys. So think of multi-sigs as having, you could have a multi-sig with these 3 hardwares. So when the transaction has to happen, 2 of these 3 keys have to be engaged. In other words, they have to be powered on. It could be a broadcast. These people don't have the individuals don't have to be together. They could be geographically located in different places. But the point is that transaction goes out there, broadcast, same idea. The devices, the wallet captures it and says, okay, can you sign it? In other words, can you write that, right? And if the signature matches, then if you have 2 of those signatures, then that transaction will go into the miners, and the miners will do its thing, right? So that's a multi-sig. You could have more than 3 out of 7. You can have multiple combinations. Now, keep in mind that these transactions at the moment, it's being worked on, but there's some proposals out there that allow for that signature, which is more information. Don't take much pay. They take some fees. Miners, by the way, take fees besides the incentive. So that's one of the things about multi-sig. Never share or digitize seed phrases. So you want to keep these seed phrases, outside of the view of the internet, for example, because you have to assume that if it's on the internet, it's exposed or it's vulnerable. This is a setup of a Shamir. I found this slide kind of interesting, but yeah, here's that you have 3 individuals and they have a piece of that recovery part. So different, So together they make up the secret, but individually it's just part of it. So each person, each individual has a secret. All right, so verify. Well, this is the demo. I'm going to use Sparrow Wallet and Jade block streams. Hopefully this will work. Let me see. So let me see if I can get the. Let me go over here. So the firmware integrity. So basically here. Let me go up here. So if you go to Blockstream and you download their software, you can then download that application for Blockstream. And using that software, you basically, when you plug this guy in and it detects it, it will then find it and basically say, hey, you need some firmware. Let me get it. Bear with me. I'm just going to see if I can start Blockstream. So this is Blockstream. It doesn't detect my Jade, but if you plug in your device, your serial, it'll detect it and say, hey, you have a let me see if I. So the Jade is starting up, and it detects, okay, and then what happens is that the Jade comes up and says, hey, what's your PIN number? So when I set this wallet up, it made me write these 12 words, or 24 words, whatever you want to pick. After I write them down, these words are safely secured somewhere. It asks me to put a PIN. If I put the wrong PIN, so I'm going to put the PIN here. 1, 2, never say the PIN out loud. So, or those words out loud. 5 and 6. So it didn't detect it. Let me try it again. By the way, if that's what I did with this this guy, is I basically put the wrong pin in this guy. Put the wrong pin 11 times, I believe, 12 times, and it breaks the system. Breaks this is bricked. When you turn it on, you have to throw this away or just use it like I'm doing it as a demo. But that's the idea here, is that if these pin are put in wrong 2 or 3 times in the case, it'll lock out, and it's kind of like, I'm done. I'm not gonna function again, and it basically erases the secret that's inside the enclave. It's not there anymore. So you gotta go back to the 12 words to get your information. This is not gonna work, but anyways, it shows the wallet here. It already knows it's Jade 5.8. See, it's asking me to firmware update. Keep your Jade secure. Well, look at that. Unlocked. So see, it knows it need this. I did 2 weeks ago. I did the firmware. So now it's telling me there's a new firmware upgrade. So we're doing this on live. So this is get 1, 2, 3, 4. By the way, this has a little knob up here that tells you move some screen. 5, 6. And it's updating the firmware. So recommendations, do this with all your devices just to keep up with. This has usually a lot of security patches, a lot of security features. It's going from 036 to 02. Okay, so I guess it just says I'm doing the upgrade again, I guess. And it shows me what you see here. You see it on the screen here on the hardware device, and it's asking me firmware update, current, new, flash. Press a button and it starts a bar flashing the firmware of the device. Each device has its own way of doing this, but the key here is just make sure you update. Part of OPSEC too is to update your Linux, your Windows, your phones, keep them always updated. It's good security practice because hackers are finding ways to get into your phones and get in there. Let's see. While this is going on, I could go here and take a look. So generating a wallet, signing, connecting to the software. Okay, the next one is we're going to connect to Sparrow. Let's wait until this finishes. But when you're generating these wallets, the wallet itself will generate those 12 words, give them to you in order, and you just start writing them down, and then it verifies to please enter the second, the third, the seventh, the 12th word to make sure you actually wrote them down. You verify yes, you have them, and it basically you continue to setting up a pin. You set the pin up, and now you have a hardware wallet that you can have kind of like a cold. And we'll talk about the next slide. Talk about the cold, warm, and hot wallets. So this is update successful. Jade is rebooting. Unlock device, same thing. Okay, sorry, my bad. This is the only responsibility that you have to do. It's not easy. It's not piece of cake. It's just you have to be focused on doing repetitive things. So it loads the wallet. And you have basic stuff here. It will tell you the amount of BTC in sats or US dollars. It tells you a serial number for that Jade. It tells you it's connected, gives you the price, basic stuff, And then you can create another account with Blockstream and so forth. But the whole exercise here is just make sure you have firmware updated. So I'm going to disconnect the Jade, and I'm going to go ahead and open Sparrow. Now, has anybody seen these products, Jade? Anybody raise their hand? Okay. What about Sparrow Wallet? Ever heard of Sparrow? Okay, so we're going to open up Sparrow Wallet. So I've set this wallet already. So let me just move this guy over here. So this is a Sparrow wallet, and the last time I used it, where's my here? Last time I opened it, it asked me for a password. Set up. It's kind of like a PIN number, but it's just a password. And it's, as you can see down here, it starts to connect. It loads the wallet history and all these other things. What it's doing, it's actually going out to those nodes and starting to get information. Now, you can grab this information from your own node that you control, or you can have it go to the internet, just grab a node that maybe Sparrow recommends, or you can pick a list there's a bunch of stuff you can set up here. But what I wanted to show is down here, you have this yellow button that says you're actually connected to the internet, and it tells you down here, updated new block height. Height meaning that's a serial number when the miners got that 10-minute and got a block, they put a serial number. That's your height. That's what they call a height number. So 900,081. That's the actual block that we're currently. And it said it finished loading. It verified. It's in sync basically with the network. And the idea here is that we see all the transactions in there that you've transacted. It could be wallet could be set up only for Kraken or only for Coinbase, for example. If you're dealing with an exchange. And for accounting purposes, it's good to have a wallet, in this case, like a wallet specifically for Kraken, specifically for the exchange itself. It's for tax purposes, because when they go back and say, give me your histories for capital gains, capital loss, stuff like that, this is crucial to have these type of, instead of having multiple exchanges in the same wallet, because that gets confusing for the accountants or the tax people. But here we have different transactions, and what we're going to do is it has all these addresses that you can sign from. So it auto receive addresses and change addresses. These are addresses you can start using. There's nothing on the right that has been used, so they're kind of like ready to be used. So I'm going to see if I can plug the Jade back in here. Hopefully it'll work. Okay, so plugged it in. It's asking me for a PIN. So 1, 2. So it starts to check. And see down here, it puts a little USB symbol. And if you click on it, it says that's a Jade. So there's a bunch of list of hardware you can pick from to set up. But in this case, so instead of sending a transaction that will take much time here for this session, I'm just going to right click on any of these transactions and say, you know what, I want to sign and verify. So what happens is I grab that address and says, I'm going to sign based on this seed or this secret that's inside my, so in other words, I'm going to use the hand to sign that check, right? And let me put a message here. Now, I'm actually typing, I'm going to sign a check, just for example purposes. But this is actually saying I'm going to move from this locker to this locker Bitcoins. Now, I don't have the key for the other locker. I only have the key for my locker. But the other locker has a slot that I can put the check in, right? So, but I have a key for this one. So I'm going to sign this check and get it out of my locker and slip it into that other locker. In other words, I'm making a transaction to, paying coffee or buying a house, whatever you want to do. So I have the set, and then down here is that signature. It's empty because we haven't signed it, right? So we're going to go ahead and sign it. And says, hey, okay, you want to sign it? You got to sign it on your Jade. It's unlocked because we unlocked it already. I'm going to sign the message. And here, it shows up that the information on the screen that I see, sign a message, and it tells me the hash, some technical information, the path, and I press the button at this point, this is a physical action, press the button, and down here you have a signed, so think of that as a check, and that's your signature sign. So now the person who receives this is able to verify back that it was done by this key. In other words, that locker, allowing that SAT to move. And you can verify doing the reverse with this idea. So that's the purpose of that specific example. There's more things you can do here. For example, you can do, this is the Jade. You could do settings. You could go here to server, in this case of Sparrow. Right now, I'm using public server. So it gives you a warning, say, hey, using a public server means it can see your transactions because I'm sending this to some server out there and they can see. Now, what they can see is is what correlate analysis and all these companies do. They see these things. If you have it on your own node, you know you're sending it to a specific node that you control. But you can make Bitcoin Core, or you can have a private Electrum server. That's a small version of a node in a sense that is able to be on your behalf, be able to kind of like a proxy between you and the nodes out there. And that, again, runs on a Start9 or any other nodes that you want to implement at your house or your cloud out there. So this is things that, so Sparrow is a very well recommended wallet to use. Any questions on that, on the wire? Very cool and clean? All right, let's go. So, all right, so now we're going to talk about hot, warm, and cold wallets, types of wallets. These are just general. They could be other names, but it's pretty well known. What a hot wallet is, always online. It's a mobile app like Strike, Coinbase, apps that you have on your phone, not your keys. Somebody else has the key, or at least the keys are out there online, connected on the internet. Pros are, quick and easy for daily use. The bad side is that it's risk for hacks. Again, best for small transactions. So our wallet Satoshi is considered a hot wallet because it's on your phone. It could be compromised, but just like you carry your wallet around with cash, somebody could take it and you lose it, whatever. It's just change. It's not your savings that's in there. Then you have a warm wallet. Now this is a semi-online. Nunchuck is a perfect example of using what we call a warm wallet. Now here is if for example I have a Nunchuck loaded on my phone, and it's a warm wallet, and that wallet comes with a TABConf, which is this guy right here, and this card is just an NFC card, just like when you tap on a point of sale. The Nunchuck basically allows you to create the transactions, broadcast it, send it. And then once you create the transaction, it says, please sign, and you tap on the back NFC chip on your phone, and that transaction goes through. So in other words, you have a kind of like a two-factor authentication on the phone when you log in, that's secured, but you have a three-factor authentication because this factor needs to come in and touch, at least get close to the NFC antenna to make that transaction happen. So that's what we consider a warm wallet. It occasionally touches the internet on and off, right? Balances security, convenience. It's still vulnerable because you're still connected to the internet. There could be a hacker in there that might mimic the NFC, capture something very difficult, but it's still possible. So that's not, especially if you have, you need it for high secure situation. And then finally, the cold wallet, which is what we've been talking about, these hardware wallets. Like the Jade, ultra secure against online threats. It's less convenient, frequent access, long-term storage kind of thing. You want to have it in those cases. So the idea is to have a balance between them. So if you have a lot of value in a specific holding of sats, you might put it in cold storage. Maybe it's a family fund, put it in cold storage, divide those into different locations, like a multi-sig, maybe have an insurance, keep one key, your wife keeps another, or you keep another one, kind of like that. But then the cold wallet, if you're traveling, you need a little bit more value, pay Airbnbs or do other things. You don't want to touch credit cards, for example. Then you might want to use a warm wallet with an NFC chip, and then you have more. You can also use these YubiKeys as well. There's other setups out there that can help with that. And then finally, when you're just having a SAT send back and value transfer without the bank, without a third party, then you want to use that transfer very quickly. Using Lightning, for example, then you use a hot wallet. Now, in terms of transactions essentials, we talked about a little bit about the fees, confirmations, and mempool basics. So transaction fees are measures in sats per VByte. It fluctuates based on the network demand and transaction size. So the way I explain this is that transaction fees are, think of it as you go to the bank everybody gets to the bank because they want to get their money or do a transaction. They have to go to the third party because it's not your money. They only give you permission to get there. When you get there, there's a huge line. And the guard is in front says, you can't come in. We only have 3 tellers. You stand outside. So it's a huge line of people coming into the bank, right? They're trying to put a transaction in. Another few guys come around and say, well, you know, I'm willing to pay a little bit more money. So they go to the guard and say, hey, here's a few dollars, $5, $6, whatever. Let me in. And then the guard says, okay, fine, you're going to pay more money? Who pays more? So, oh, this guy wants to pay more, he goes in front of him. And so on and so forth. So the idea is the fees, when these miners are putting their records inside that block, they'll filter, say, who's willing to give me money for this, you know, fees. I get an incentive, but I would love to get more fees. So somebody says, I need that transaction now, whatever, I'm going to pay so much. You increase the fees. And you can do this with a wallet. With a wallet has the ability to, when you create that transaction, increase the fees, lower the fees. You don't care. You want to be in the line and be in the last and pay 0 fees. You wait there. And then you just have to wait. Instead of 10 minutes, you might wait 40, 50, 60 minutes, 1 day, 2 days, whatever it is. And that's the idea, is that you get to the teller to get the transaction because you pay higher fees. And this happens every 10 minutes, how these miners organize these records in these blocks. Okay, so then you have the confirmation, blocks added post-transactions for security, more blocks, higher immutability, meaning that the more blocks you have, so if you have 1 or 2 blocks, then you have less security, but if you have 6, 7, 8, 20 blocks, it's highly more secure because the probabilities of getting a hack at that moment is just impossible to revert that transaction. And then you have this mempool, which is that you can go to mempool.space and look at the transactions themselves. And we'll look into that a little bit later. Some of the pitfalls, phishing, fake websites, we all know about this, emails, mimicking legitimate services, etc. Just keep an eye on those things. The basic protection against phishing attacks. Try to be aware of clipboard malware, so it alters copies, Bitcoin addresses to attackers. Remember when we were doing this with the Jade, it said, I'm going to sign it, but then you have to press the button on the thing. That basically is asking you to verify what you see on the screen, what's happening on your laptop, because that could be some hacker in between trying to paste some other address that's not the one they intended destination. So it's like moving it from a locker in the cloud to another locker, and the locker is the wrong locker. But the Jade, those hardware wallets allow you to check for that. Supply chain attacks, compromise hardware and software in distribution. That's where a lot of people say, well, where can I buy this? I'll go to eBay and get it, or get it on some other vendor site. We try to recommend just go to the source. Go to the actual people that make this hardware, because you don't know what's inside. And the other thing is, when you get these hardwares, if they're configured, they're not supposed to be configured. That's another indication that it's been tampered, it's vulnerable. So you assume that somebody touched it, even though they sell it with all these seals and all these protections and stuff. You want to make sure you first of all, most of the firmware updates, some of them just clean the whole thing, and you have to get the 12 words back in it. Sometimes those 12 words are there, but it's somebody else's 12 words. And then when you start using it, you're thinking that your 12 word is what's in signing this, and then you're signing somebody else's 12 words, and they'll be able to grab those coins from you. So keep an eye on that. Tricking users to, if somebody says, hey, I need to see your keys. One of the things we do as an audit, when we do an audit, is that when you're creating these keys and you're writing them down, it's got to be a secure place. It's got to be a place that nobody's behind you, nobody's seeing, there's no cameras. In the military terms, you got the skiffs out there that protect it against electromagnetic and all these radio interferences. And this is, all the senators and all these people in government have skiffs in their house, and they're supposed to be using this because it protects. So the idea here is that you want to make sure there's no eyes behind looking at these secrets. And once you expose the secret, like a lot of the wallets today, and it's unfortunate, they allow you as a user, as a convenience, to show the keys over and over and over. So you go to the wallet, and you'll see it when you go download Wallet Satoshi, is that you can see your wallet keys again. It's like double check. It's like, did I write them down? Is it correct? Oh, I forgot the words. Let me get, So in terms of auditing, and especially we have high security, you can only see those words that one time you're creating them. Once you leave the SCIF or that secured area, and you expose those keys again, even though you're thinking you're in a room, nobody's watching, you're in an Airbnb, nobody's watching, well, there could be cameras in there as well, they're vulnerable. And you got to assume that once those keys are exposed, you have a security risk there. Now, if it's a warm wallet, it's not really too much value, then you can go ahead and expose those private keys. So also verify the URLs. Try to use bookmarks as much as possible. If you've saved bookmarks you've done in the past, just carry those bookmarks with you. Use the hardware wallets for offline signing. Try to enable two-factor everywhere. Any account that you do online, put two-factor, whether it's SMS, hopefully not SMS, but if you any type of maybe email sending a two-factor, we know about all those things. If you get any of these YubiKeys, go to YubiKey. I'm not a spokesperson for them, but they're one of the best out there. Buy 3 of these, keep 2, keep 1 at home, travel with 2, and if you lose 1, you can at least get the second one. And you set this up on every account you can think of that gives you access, even Twitter or X or Facebook. They all have that feature. You can go in there in the security and enable hardware or at least two-factor authentication with your bank accounts as well. Anyways, verify, don't trust mindset. That's our Bitcoin motto or whatever. Daily OPSEC, use VPNs, dedicated devices, Bitcoin online, be on a VPN everywhere you go. Make it into a habit. Have more than one VPN for different scenarios. Use VPNs that are trustworthy, that don't log your stuff, don't keep track of your where you are, and that allow you to use different GPS, or locations. You can, again, it's hard work because sometimes you'll be, why can't I connect? Oh, your VPN is turned on and it conflicts with the Wi-Fi or whatever. But anyways, it's hard work. It's being responsible. Okay, so when you have inheritance planning or recovery process, so you have this set up. Your wife has a key, your insurance has another key, and you have these Jade, and everything is set up and it's stored in a steel plate and stored somewhere. Something happens, you need to get access to those keys. One of those keys is compromised. One of those keys, unfortunately, some of us will eventually die, and the other 2 are still alive, and they have to recover from that disaster, right? So if you lose the device, so if I lose one of these devices, but the seed phrase is still intact, what you do is you restore the wallet on new hardware. So simple. You lost this, guy's in the water. There's a few individuals out there happen to be in a boat accident or be in a boat and they just flying around with the hardware. I have a hardware key, and it falls in the water. Anyways, if that happens, hopefully you had the backup at home, you have the 12 words, you restore, and you're back up and running. Of course, make sure you have a new hardware that you got from the source instead of getting it from eBay or any other third party. The reverse, or the opposite of that, lost the seed phrase, but the device is still intact. So if that happens, or if you happen to get to one of these devices and you expose the 12 words, I assume that has, maybe you're part of an organization as an auditor. I will check those things, and if I ask you the question, have you exposed these keys, or what's the process of exposure? Oh yeah, we do it at the desk of the CEO. We check in. Okay, so you actually see this. Okay, that's vulnerable. So I check. Okay, the keys have been compromised. So when that happens, what you do is you go to the device, you go to a different wallet, and you transfer the value from this compromised device to a new device that has seed that's not being compromised. So you make that transfer. This is super simple. And now you have a working, say a third key, or if it's the only key that you have, then you do that process. Now that comes with caveats because sometimes you have high fees. It takes time you get nervous because you want to transfer that much money. So maybe the good thing is just to transfer a few sats, make sure that worked okay, and then you move another chunk and then move another chunk. Maybe you say, this is too vulnerable to one device, I'll have 2 devices with that. Transfer my value half and half to 2 devices. do a dead man switch. That's basically if some of us happen to pass away or are on a trip and maybe you're not connected to these family members for months. If something like that happens, you want to have trains have the same thing. A conductor dies and while he's driving the train, and there's no pressure on the accelerator and the train stops. So that's the idea behind that. If one of those keys get compromised, there's a way in which this no activity on this account for so long, it triggers another key and maybe moves funds from one address to another. And then share your access instructions, but don't share the seeds. So if you go to your wife and you say, okay, this is a procedure of what you would do, or it might not be a written procedure, it might be just, see this steel plate, it's stored here, just go there and do these steps, or go there and just open it, and it's vulnerable, but at least you have access to a wallet. And what wallet do you use? This wallet, could be any of these wallets. And you put those steps. You might do these steps every 6 months, every so often. That you might want to change hardware. You want to go from one hardware to a newer hardware or a newer wallet. You do those steps. So that's the idea behind that. Have legal documents. So in your wills, again, put those guidance, those procedures in there, which is the seed recovery. And you have them offline. Maybe that's a procedure you have with your insurance as well. So you have those things in place. You check them every so often, so you don't do them and forget about it. Just go back to them and check them. Okay, so this is a hands-on. If everybody wants to do the wallet Satoshi, and you guys show me a wallet address, I will send some sats over, so we can start that path. There is different wallets, non-custodial wallets. For example, Aqua, Misty wallet is one of them. Misty Breeze is another one. Wallet Satoshi. These are all mobile wallets. Aqua wallet uses Lightning on Liquid, so it's kind of like a Lightning transaction, but on Liquid network that's secured by Bitcoin as well. It's a federation, giving you a balance to be able to transact very fast with lower fees. So that's Aqua. It's well known in outside the U.S. So people in Argentina, in Colombia, in Venezuela, and all these other Uruguay, they have access to Aqua, and they even have a Visa debit card tied to those Lightning sats that are in that Aqua wallet, and you can use this debit card and you basically top it up. So that's a very popular. Aqua will introduce that in the U.S., but they use credit. Like we don't use the regulation is different in the U.S. So what you do is when you download the wallet, you want to make sure you write down those 12 words. So if you've downloaded the wallet, one of the things is that you can either create it as a custodial wallet, so that gives you your email and set it up, and kind of like creating an account with Satoshi servers. Basically, they keep an account, but it's a custodial wallet. But you can also have a button there that says switch over to non-custodial, and that basically triggers those 12 words when you write them down. So that's wallet Satoshi. There's also other wallets that are custodial, like Strike, just like Venmo. I can send you sats to that wallet as well, but just think of it that's an account that you have on Strike. And you can transfer from custodial to non-custodial, so you can treat a custodial wallet as a hot wallet, and a non-custodial wallet be a kind of like a warm wallet. So you can have different amounts and different ones. Now, if you lose, let's say you want to go through the exercise, you can clean the whole wallet and restore it from scratch, and then it will say, hey, do you want to create a new wallet, or do you want to restore from the 12 words? And if you wrote them down, you just go in there and start, just restoring the wallet, and you see the account and the balance. And you can test it by putting the wrong words and see what happens. So if anybody wants to show me their QR code, I'll gladly send some sats over. I don't have access to set up. I don't want to receive anybody's. Normally what I do is I give it to someone, and then that person gives somebody else, and then kind of like sats flowing around the whole place. So if anybody wants to get some sats, we can do that. Everybody okay? You got? Want to come here and I'll. So for example, I have 16,000 sats. That's 19 bucks, right? So I can send you $1, right? So you just can. So what I'm doing now is it comes to my phone and it says, okay, I want to send. You can pick. Put a note in here, test, for example. So there, 1,000 sats. And then it shows me this green bar going through the thing saying payment sent, and then you should receive it. So he got 1,000 sats. Now the process there was through the layer 2, so it's on top of Bitcoin, basically, this Lightning Network. And this is basically a routing software. So this network, this protocol is using off-chain. In other words, it's not on Bitcoin. It's not doing the 10 it's not doing the 10 minutes per transaction. It just goes out there and says, hey, I'm gonna send. Then he gets those sats. Now, if he wants to get those Lightning sats out on chain, you can do that. Go ahead. So test number 2. He goes through. Payment said, he got it. So that's how fast that transaction happened. It got verified through the Lightning Network, and it's using the security of Bitcoin. Now, if they want to go off, they say, let's say that's 100,000 sats. So their wallet, or let's leave it at 1,000 sats. In 2 years from now, it's $500,000 of Bitcoin. Let's assume that we're there. That 1,000 sat is good money. Now, you don't want to be walking around with those 1,000 sats. So what you do with this is you either transfer it to a non-custodial wallet, or transfer it to a custodial wallet, whatever or one of these hardware wallets, and leave equivalent of say $1, because it could be $100, it could be $200. So that's the logic behind that. Is that when you do that step, you're moving from Lightning layer, so it's that layer 2, into layer 1, which is Bitcoin, and now you secure it better. So that's the logic behind that. And Lightning is a route. It's kind of like if anybody knows about networking and the internet, there's all these routers that route payments. These payments are being routed the same way as the internet is, but it's value being transferred. And the way it works is that when we make this, Wallet Satoshi has these networks, and they connect to all these other Lightning nodes, and they have value contracts between these, let's say, routers on the internet. So these nodes are connected to each other with value in them. So what we did just now, 1,000 sats being transferred, what happens is Wallet Satoshi, if this was a different wallet, for example, another wallet, and needed those routed to Aqua Wallet, for example, on a different network controlled by Aqua, for example, there's some channels. In other words, some contracts are going on between a Wallet Satoshi node and Aqua Wallet nodes that have a contract that says, if it's less than $1,000 or $2,000, I'll give you an IOU. You give me the IOU. I check. It's kind of like when banks balance each other out. Think of that. They're balancing their ledgers between themselves. That's what Lightning is. It's having these very fast and effective networks or nodes or banks leveraging their ledger without touching that base layer. But if they want to close those channels or increase the channels or change the channels between those people, it could be an individual, it doesn't have to be Aqua or Wallet Satoshi. These nodes, you participate by opening these contracts or channels of value. And once you open it, if your channel is pretty big, then those transactions, those IOU transfer through you. And obviously there's some fees involved, very low fees that these Lightning operators will be able to take. So that's the logic behind the Lightning network. There's other type of Lightning setups. There's eCash. There's all these other layer 2s that have improvements to Lightning or help the Lightning network in some other ways in its complexity, for example. So that's simple exercise of Wallet Satoshi. There's other wallets. I could be around after the conference and we can also discuss and keep doing this exercise as well. Or if you, next to you, you want to. Now, normally you saw the mempool, right? So we looked at the mempool. Let me just go here. Let's talk about the mempool real quick. So the mempool is, it's the way they depicted this is a very representation of the blockchain up on the top, right? And these are the blocks that happen every 10 minutes. That line, that white line in the center, that's the actual 10-minute when it happens, every 10 minutes, right? So each of these blocks are waiting in line. So in other words, you have people in there, and on top you have 22 to 204 sats per VByte. That's your fee. You know, so you go, if you say you're willing to pay, you get into that waiting line. As soon as they open the door, you're in the blockchain, right? If you don't want to pay nothing and you just go to the last block always, let's think of it as the line. But if you go to any of these blocks that already happened, they have the serial number up here, see? Serial number. So if I go to this one, and underneath it tells you the pool. Again, pool is another concept, but the idea is that miner mine that specific block. You get all of these information about the transactions. Here are the transactions that happen in that block. It gives you the address, it gives you the amounts. So this is literally like cash transactions. When you go to a 7-Eleven or whatever, you know, your CVS or whatever, you buy something, you give it 20, but it was only $5 Coca-Cola or whatever, you're getting $15 back. So that's your transactions UTXO kind of exchange back. That's why you have all these transactions being represented. But that's the best way to, it's the analogy. It's not the actual amount that goes there specifically. It's actually change that's happening. So this is the mempool. Now, to verify, so I verify by putting the address on the on-chain, but I want to verify Lightning. The reason I put this is because it's a long description of Grok explaining how do you verify Lightning transaction. Scan this guy, you'll see the text there, and you can explore that, how to actually verify a Lightning transaction. That's why I had this in there, because it's too complicated to go through the whole thing. So what we learned, it just workshop empowers the new Bitcoiners to take control of their Bitcoin. Well, hopefully you'll grab that. The basics, self-custody strategies and transaction security. Understanding self-custody steps and secure your seed management. Those 12 and 24 words. Make sure you secure them properly. Explanation of core Bitcoin concept in that little display that I did, you know. And we went through hands-on experience guides through using your non-custodial wallet. So hopefully you'll have a intro into this beautiful world of Bitcoin that I've been, and it's liberated a lot of us. So thank you, and if you want to go to our website, you'll get some information there too. We provide open source code to the Bitcoin community and Lightning community on projects, tools that we use, and we want to say, hey, these tools are great for me. We're using it. Might as well give it to the public, give it to the community. So we do that as well. We are also help certify your institution if you really want to pursue that. Hopefully regulatory bodies around the world will start recognizing these standards, adding them to their own, because it's there's all the standards out there that have been around for 25, 30 years, and the CSS has basically created those standards to add them to that. So they're adding actually blockchain security standards, handling cryptocurrencies, and handling secrets basically.